Hi all, Steve Mera here. In this episode of a sneak peek with my good friend and colleague Alexis Brooks for a series on her YouTube channel called UAP and Beyond, I'm going to be touching on psionics. Though that the word psionics is not new, it's been going on for quite some years, but more prominently heard about today, especially in regards to the Skywatcher program, where I admit some of it is questionable, but there are also some interesting little bits taken into consideration when they talk about the dog whistle that can bring down UFOs. The terminology makes me laugh, to be honest. Bring down UFOs. Though that there are a number of frequencies that can be used to attract UAP in specific areas, not all areas, but certain areas. And you'll usually note that these areas are rural, desert-like, where they do these tests and where the UAP are seen, especially in locations of positive magnetic regions. If you want to know more about that, then I suggest you go on to one of the videos in regards to Project Doorway, myself and Barry Fitzgerald's work, which explains about magnetic regions and association to the UAP or UFO phenomena. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of the frequencies that they're using, because I know that these guys want to keep it a bit secret. But I believe it's an RF frequency at a certain frequency that attracts these things. They're all the more curious, not bringing down UFOs. I mean, they're curious. But then when you've got a couple of guys or a few guys in the desert with some equipment in that location where they seemingly are doing their stuff at night on their own, sometimes they're going to have interactions, yes. Are we forcefully bringing them down? I don't think so at all. But I am aware of a couple of naughty programs the US government have been involved in, where they have waited and baited the phenomena to see if they can forcefully bring them down. In other words, attract them and then kind of jump on them with weapons and things, which is just crazy, absolutely crazy, which we shouldn't be doing, of course. But recently there has been a video which is out there. Now, I'm not going to show it, but it is a gentleman called Mike Batista, who was a former Green Beret, who's part of the Skywatcher program, who claims they had an object come into view through this baited frequencies that they're using, and it seemingly dropped another part of on the craft. It seemed to lower to the ground, and there was some type of, what they claim, some type of entity that was shape-shifting or something like that. The archetype was forming, and there was a few interesting things that Mike had to say. The first was that when the incident actually happened, and he's filming it with his camera, and to be honest with you, the video's crappy, and you can't really make anything out apart from a few blobs of light and stuff. But you have to also consider, because this has happened to me, that when you're filming with your cell phone, your mobile phone, it is difficult at a distance at night for the lens to focus on shapes of light and things like that. So what I can say is that I've been in that situation. Your eyesight, you just don't realise how actually good your human eyesight is until you compare it to these sort of cell footage at distance filming at night. So what I can say here is that does happen, which basically means that you end up with crappy video footage, and to be honest, it's not worth anything. Could be anything, the filming, but it's what they say. It's interesting. And Mike said when this descended to the ground and he thought he could see some type of entity of some sort, kind of moving around, shape-shifting or whatever in the distance, which he was filming with his cell phone. He said something came over him where he suddenly just felt compliant.
You know, once it got in proximity of me within 100 feet, as it was closing in, it did something to me that affected me physiologically in a way that almost made me docile or compliant.
Now, I've talked about this before, and it is the process of the conscious connection with the phenomena. If we consider that when we observe phenomena in the sky, when we observe anything, actually, because of the waveform collapsing, evidence of the dual slit experiment, or double slit experiment, you could say, that is likely that the phenomena recognizes it's being watched, hence can make a connection, a conscious connection with the observer. We know by using flow bands, which connect to your head and monitor your brainwave activity to your cell phone, on site, mobile, even when phenomena is taking place. We noticed very quickly during these experiments that the data showed that the brainwaves were altering from your normal waking state, as you are, into theta. Now, theta brainwave is a very manipulative state, often seen through sort of light sleep, daydreaming, hypnosis, those sort of things. So it's as if the phenomena is seemingly making you compliant, preparing you so that it can easily interact and manipulate the perceptions of what you're experiencing. It is in theta. Of course, false perception is not good, because we now know that it can affect the brain, the caudate putamen area. False perception causes scarring, and that is not a good. That's the evidence behind that. That's not good. But interesting, Mike states suddenly this feeling coming over him that he suddenly felt compliant, and I thought, yeah, here we go again. This is the conscious connection. This is at that moment in time he lost his discernment and conscious connection was made with him. This is what phenomena can do. Interestingly though, when we did our tests, myself and of course Barry Fitzgerald, who was utilising this technology out in the field, conscious connection was made within, fastest was 20 seconds. So we know how fast phenomena can consciously connect with an individual, maybe even faster, but got it to 20 seconds. So that's not a lot. So you can lose your discernment in 20 seconds if the phenomena really wants to engage you. Now, there are some other interesting things that I had to say as well.
As it was coming down, it looked like ethereal, like if they're interdimensional, maybe it was, still materializing in the third dimension. And as it got closer, I remember it started morphing like this and pulled one of these, and it was shape shifting into all these different, things. I don't know what they were. You have to take a closer look at it until it turned into something that you would see on a petroglyph.
I'm sure you'll recognize what he's talking about in regards to the work that we're doing and the experiments that we're conducting at our end. They correlate. It's as simple as that. But Psionic has been around for a long time, and though that many people have a connection with the phenomena, like myself and others, even Barry, out in the field suddenly we have this feeling of a presence. We'll go and look, we'll see something sometimes that wants to interact with us. But I don't think it's just something that you can walk out into the field and do unless you are fortunate, or should we say unfortunate in some occasions. Wrong place, wrong time situations. But I recall incidents like that. The last one was in Palm Springs, in the mountains of Palm Springs, the desert mountains, with Barry and a few other members of our team from Project Doorway. A huge craft just manifested. We knew there's a location to go to because of the data. It's like anything, you know, you've got to, in science, you've got to do the, you know, if the data points to this location being active, you've got to do the other way around. You've got to prove the data by going to the location and proving your hypothesis is correct. And it was. A very large object appeared in the sky and just switched on. Just like that. It was huge. It was very colourful, beautiful colours, like welding lights, art welding lights, beautiful colours. Very hypnotic, actually, to the point where Barry is nudging me and he's like, look behind, sort of thing, because I'm totally locked on, as you can imagine, in awe looking at this thing. But it was only when Barry said, when we got, you know, we were there for about half an hour. We didn't see anything. It's a beautiful night sky, pitch black, obviously, in the desert. But beautiful night, no moon, stars are out. And he said, maybe we need to put the cameras away. So we did. We put them into the trunk or the boot of the car. And then, literally within a minute, bang, there it was, right in front of us. And of course it caught us on the hop. Didn't expect that. But when we looked, because Barry's nudging me and saying, so you need to be aware of your 360. Look behind, there were definitely something on the ground behind us at distance. Whatever these things were, they were beings or childlike sized figures. But then this feeling comes over us, not just myself, Barry and others. The whole body reacts. Because we've starved ourselves of refined sugar, so we are very attuned to our fight or flight mechanism. And boy, did that kick in. And when that happens, we always listen to it and acknowledge it and act. So Barry said, time to go. So we did. I mean, some people have said, are you mad? You could have, you know, you should have stayed, found out what these things were. And no. When the body reacts like that, it's get the hell out of Dodge. And we did. We jumped into the truck, the Jeep, and off we shot. But it did prove the hypothesis of the data was correct, which is good. So yes, you can lose your discernment very quickly. But in regards to Skywatcher, I'm still very dubious about some of the stuff, though that I know other things that have taken place, and I know some things are certainly legitimate. There were 2 videos that were out. The first one was Barber's egg, Jake Barber, and filming the recovery of an egg-shaped object. Of course, there are many egg-shaped objects around, like the Delhi eggs, which are sculptures, which you'll find in Delhi, about that size as well, interestingly enough, look similar. And they are situated on rooftops. And they have to be airlifted sometimes to them. So, but I am aware of data that's been carried out, quantum analysis on this egg, the first one that appeared in video format from Jake Barber's team. And there were some anomalies about that. I can't go into it at this time, but yes, there were some anomalies about that. But then a second video popped up, didn't it, with another egg. And that's just, I believe, totally fake, to be honest with you, from what I know. Anyhow, I am talking with Alexis Brooks about Psionics, and please go over to Alexis Brooks Higher Journeys YouTube channel. I'm going to put a link in the bottom of this video where you can click on it and see the full interview, the full feature, the full discussion. So click on that to watch the full version. And whilst you're over there, please give it a thumbs up, because we are producing this UAP and Beyond series for her channel. And if you do like it, we want to encourage more please give her a thumbs up. Please share, like, and etc. And the same for us as well, guys, on this channel, because we're still this subject, and people keep saying, why are your views low? Well, because YouTube don't mind the odd video going up, but when you dedicate a channel to this type of subject, yeah, you get battered. I'm used to it. I don't mind. It's not about that. It's about getting the data out. That's the most important thing for us, myself, Barry, Nathan, and a few others, is to get the data out. So please, do like, share, and subscribe as well. And I hope you enjoy this conversation that we have on UAP and beyond. Thank you for watching, and we will be back very soon.
Manipulate. When that starts getting very, very interesting.
Very interesting.
And certainly when we're talking about psionics, everybody's talking about psionics at the moment, which, to be honest, has been going on for a long time. That's another thing. It's got other names. I mean, years back, it would have been ritualistic practices, first off. Mm-hmm. Then it would have been your seances and things like that, right. Communications. Then it would have been into the close encounter type stuff, where it's C5, Stephen Gray Initiative. Then developments into heist, because the only difference between C5 and heist is the fact that it's more control, because when you're dealing with C5 initiatives and people are coming, these are people that are just anybody. Where heist is sort of looks and goes, oh, do you know what? You're an experiencer and you're an experiencer. Let's bring these people together. It's a bit more controlled and better results.
Right.
And then, of course, the next step is, your PC, your psionic circles.
And by the way,
yes.
Sorry about that. By the way, heist stands for Human Initiated Contact Encounters.
Yes.
There's been a little bit of a tussle between what came first, CE5 or heist, but they've got aspects of the same thing. I want to tell you how I've done a couple of shows on psionics. I hope y'all will look in the archives to find them. But psionics is defined, I'm going to give you the textbook definition, as the supposed ability to manipulate reality, energy, or information through the power of the mind. And it's often treated as if it were a measurable training system that you could call the science of the psyche. So it's said to involve telepathy, psychokinesis or telekinesis,
physical
clairvoyance, precognition, mind shielding or defense, which I found interesting, mental protection from outside influence, and energy manipulation. So, like projecting psi energy or what's called chi. So there's a lot of components to this, but here's the other thing, Steve, that I find interesting. When you think of psionics, I know what you're saying in terms of it's been called different things over the years, but it seems like there's a layer that's been added to psionics as we understand it today that involves a technical component that is added to the that's important. That's an important distinction.
There are five in total that represent psionics. You got your natural process, which is through just your normal process of communication. Then you've got your meditational communications. So you're doing it through a point of meditation. You've also got the spiritual aspect, because some people might refer to this as it's a spiritual thing I'm communicating with, or it's biblical, it's religious, has religious connotations. Then, of course, there's the chemical inducing, which I would not recommend, many thousands of years ago, people were doing that in different tribes and things around the world, eating certain plants like ayahuasca and many other things and stuff to have those type of induce certain experience that might enhance psionics. And now we have the technological era coming in, and this is what you're referring to. And there is the process. I know that process very, very well. Again, it's development of Ganzfeld. It's Ganzfeld plus what they call. So you basically it's deprivation to light, deprivation to sound, inducing a frequency, so that stimulates part of the brain. We know what frequencies stimulate part of the brain, especially those that are helpful for having external experiences with phenomena. And this types of equipment utilized on location within individuals. It's a group effort. This is the point where they are up to at the moment, which they've been doing for the last, well, we're only hearing about it now, but I think it's about 15 years, something like that. Okay. Within that 15 years, 2 highly secret developmental programs were put together through the US government. The lower one was Haystack, which is about trying to bring down, as they say, bring down a UFO. They're not. We're realizing now they're not actually bringing down the UFO. It's an enticement. It's please come and land. It's that sort of thing. So
very controversial.
It's very controversial. And then I hate to say, but Interloper came along then, and Interloper was, it was like, remember that old cartoon with the coyote and the roadrunner?
Yes.
It's a bit like that. You put the seed out and you're waiting behind the wall with a hammer. This is what Interloper was. It was the enticing of bringing these things to ground or near ground, and then basically pounce on them with weapons and technology that we have, or the US have, to try and gain the technology for themselves. And that was Interloper, and that involved a lot of military effort from various different departments and a huge amount of money. So Interloper is still very, very sensitive and can't be talked about much, but we are aware of it. And Haystack is the lower version of this.
Yeah, how interesting. Well, again, this is where it gets into the more nefarious aspects that, it's still questionable as to how much advanced NHI would allow programs like this to even be successful to using the criteria that they're using. But this whole idea of the telepathy aspect, which, on a cursory level, when people first hear psionics described, believe that is the primary aspect that's involved is a telepathic, and there is a telepathic link, of course.
The same process of communication is done in the same matter. It's done in the same focus point. How communications might come through devices or come through to your inner ear. It's the same process through the mind. So it's just being delivered. That's the return, and you deliver. So what happens is when psionic circles, they get together, they do these experiments, they're trying to communicate. They're trying to see if an unidentified object will appear in the sky. That's what they're trying to do, basically. And then focus on this to try and communicate. They're not, they use these references about bringing it down. It's a form of communication. And they're asking it. They're not forcing it down. They're asking it, can you come lower? Can you come nearer? And that sort of thing. And there is a response to that. Sometimes they will receive communications. They'll hear voices in their heads. Sometimes they'll get communications from recorded devices through this process. So sometimes it's physical recordings made. Sometimes it's through a non-physical means of, we say telepathy, but it's also transplacement. The professional name is more transplacement than telepathy, because it's not brain to brain communication, because sometimes you're dealing with crafts which seemingly, here we go, are conscious, not just the individuals in them, but the craft is also tied. The craft is tied with them. The craft is part of them. That's the best way I can put it. It's conscious in a sense.
The craft itself is sentient, absolutely.
Yes. We are instruments. We are aerials to the phenomena. We can be utilized by them. Now, when it comes to psionic circles, there are people who have had those type of similar experiences during what is referred to as the flower. Now, I'll explain. The flower is a process of where 6 or upwards lie on the ground with their heads more or less touching each other.
Touching each other, right.
Right. To look from above, it looks like a flower. Yeah. But they believe that because the group process of communication is seemingly better when you're in close vicinity to other people and the heads and the consciousness, because these brain waves being shared like a conduit for everybody. And there has been some success with that. But then again, communications. Now, what happened was only one of them may have received it, but it went right round, and they all heard it. All heard it in their heads. you know. So maybe it just transitions. One of them got it, and it just went right around all of them, and they all heard the same communication, which is really interesting. So people in the governmental psionic circles are made up of people which really not many of them are experiencers. I think they're getting there now, though. I think they're realizing we don't want to just bring in a load of soldiers and ask them to do this, or a load of scientists and just do this.
They have to be more vested in it in terms of, the lifelong. Well, one of the things I'll say is, going back to the show that we did on the gentleman, I believe Jason Sands, was it? We were kind of commentating about his appearance on Joe Rogan, and he touched on this idea of, oh gosh, I'm going to lose my train of thought. What you were just saying, this idea of
the group consciousness,
individuals in the military, including himself, being experiencers. In fact, the gentleman that was with him on the Joe Rogan show both talked about childhood encounters long before, obviously, they were in the military. So, I don't know that they're plucking these psionic individuals. These assets are not out of context with their background as children, as lifelong experiencers.
They are picking initiated individuals.
Yes. Indeed.
Like myself, many others, are initiated individuals. I mean, it just happens. It's just part of life now for me, anyway. Because I had initiated experience when I was 7, and then that's where I am now because of that experience. I assume they know that because, like I say, they are aware of future events, and maybe they know when they have initiated experience, like in 27, 28, 30 years' time, oh, you're going to be doing this, and that's what we want you to do. Get that word out. Do this.
Listen, we're out of time, man. We're out of time. We're going next door because you know what I do, you guys. Tell me what you think. I want to dig in to this idea of why NHI, as we're calling them these days, so forgive the term, hell-bent on showing us what's possible. What's that all about? Let's go next door and talk about that. And by the way, while you're here, before you leave here, can you please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and come along for the ride. We're taking this as far as we can at this very exciting time. So, as always, Steve Mera, my friend, my co-host, thank you ever so much.
Thank you.